Safely across the street, Melody and Eddie stopped to catch their breath. "Look!" Eddie pointed toward the Clancy house. A light shone through an upstairs window. They died behind a bush and watched as a series of lights flickered on. A ghostly-looking woman opened the front door and peered in their direction. Was it their imagination, or did they really see something green flashing in the darkness of the night?
Billy School Dropouts. I know what these monsters are about. Billy School Dropouts. And it's a Dracula. Think he wants to snack on you. I saw on the wall.
Pencils down, dudes. Welcome to the Bailey School Kid Dropouts.
Hells yeah!
I'm Matt here with my co-host Dave,
Woo!
and as
That's
always,
money thing.
Ed.
Ayo!
And we're really excited about our favorite book series, Bailey School Kids.
It's been basically a staple in my life. I got all the posters, all the action figures. I have some autographs from the movie. It's good.
Yeah.
Was there a movie?
Of course there was.
Well-
It was Johnny Depp's early role.
Yeah,
As,
we made it, and we cast an early young Johnny Depp, but it's never seen the
that's
light
right.
of day.
I remember that
hasn't.
happening.
Yeah, we were
because
really-
I'm such a fan of the Bailey School Kids.
Yeah, we were, it was, kind of a low point in our lives. We were a little drunk, but what kept us going was the Bailey School Kids. And I'm excited to talk about today's book, Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots.
Oh, God, yeah. So this is the first of the Bailey School series. Some people would say that it was the only important supernatural book series aimed for children in the 90s. And by some people, I mean us.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I mean, we are some people.
And I think you could really open that up to supernatural horror books in the 90s altogether. Nothing else really important happened. It's kind of a dry spell. There were a lot of books telling you about what scary things do. It was just real nice to have a book series telling you about what scary things don't do.
Right. Yeah. I really take this to heart. I need this instruction. Like, what do vampires not do? Right? I know what they do. What don't they do? And that's what this book really dives into.
And of course, like the newer books they have, like, what is that? Millennials Don't Vote. Yeah. Grandfathers Don't Understand Multiple Genders. Gender Fluent Society is the new book as well. But it's really good that we have this long-standing love of the Bailey School Kids and this long-standing podcast that's been going on 10, 20 years now. I'm really happy to discuss the first book in this, our 100th episode.
Hell yeah. So should we do it? Should we dive into it?
Let's do it, man. Let's jump headfirst into this fucking tour de force of literature masterpiece.
Hell yeah. Well, let's just talk about the plot.
Well, I got some. Let's set the time and place.
Oh, well, let's time and place it. Yes.
So this is Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots. The series is said to have been released in 1990, but this first book only came out on January 28th of 1991. So they're already fudging the numbers a little bit.
Oh, boy.
And that's why I like them. They take a look at the literary world, and they just flip it on its butt.
That's right. Play by their own rules.
Own rules. So, January 1991, I was a wee lad of 3 years old.
Yeah, I was also 3 years old.
I was 58.
Well, we all know that.
You look so good for your age.
Thank you. I'm 81.
Wow.
I'd love to be an old man like you with a younger man's dick.
I have a young man's dick, but I have a extremely decrepit man's balls.
Hey, man, two sides of the coin.
We all do, right? There's no good-looking balls. Anyway, go on.
So anyway, well, you should see our Johnny Depp footage. For,
A lot of balls. Whole lot.
the original working title, Toilets Are Not Johnny Depp.
The original truck nuts were cast on a mold of Johnny Depp's balls.
Johnny Depp's swollen, enormous balls just filled with pus and semen.
We drained them, though. We drained them.
To actually keep his balls looking that cool for trucks, they just made him list college football teams as they sculpted them. Anyway,
I really feel like you can see it in the mold, you know?
January of 1991. Top songs of that month. Justify My Love by Madonna. I don't know that one.
You can run, you can hide, but you can't escape my love. I think that was it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's an okay song, but it's not as memorable as, say, like a Virgin or, you know, the other Madonna song that she does.
Yeah, the one about,
you know,
Papa.
Turns out I don't really know a lot about Madonna. Sorry, guys, podcast over.
By the way, what I sang was Enrique Iglesias.
Well,
Just so the
apparently we
fans
know a
don't
lot
get
about
mad at us.
Enrique Iglesias either. And then the other song for the end of the month was Love Will Never Do by Jeanette Jackson.
Look,
Oh.
I've had enough of love songs, all right? That's all we got for this month? Love songs? Please.
Well, no, because the movie for the entire month, Home Alone 1.
Oh, snap.
Which was really impressive of them to call it Home Alone 1. Because they're like, yeah, we're getting sequels.
Yeah, that's making some fucking bold like motives right there. Like,
Yeah.
we are going to make more of these fucking movies, and at a certain point, it's going to be one about a kid who's homesick, and Macaulay Culkin's not going to be in it, and nobody's going to go see it, and then they're going to stop. That's
it's gonna
Home
be
Alone 3. Did you guys know there was a Home Alone 3?
Oh, yeah, I
with
saw
a different
it.
kid.
Yeah, and it wasn't even on Christmas. It was so bad.
I love that. Isn't it like Scarlett Johansson, his mom?
No, Scarlett Johansson was in the original Home Alone as one of the older sisters or cousins or something.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never wanted to kiss a cousin, but I'd kiss that cousin. Remember the guy who does pee-pee when he drinks soda?
You see on the fluids fuller.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
everybody was so okay with that. Everybody was so okay with that kid pissing the bed. And there's that scene of him just like chugging that soda and giving Kevin the face, just like, ah. And it's like, dude, you're going to piss the fucking bed. That's not okay.
Right, it's a reasonable
Stop it.
thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just, that's been in my head since 1991.
I also love that the whole family knows about this kid pissing the bed, that they have harnessed its power to use it as a punishment for another kid.
I know, that's so fucked up. Kevin McAllister has no chance at a normal life.
No, he's just going to get pissed on until he dies.
Well, that's how I want to go out. So January 1st, 1991, Kathleen Hurles? I can't read my own writing. She's born. She's the voice of Dora the Explorer.
Oh.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. On January 12th, Congress gives older Bush authority to wage war on Iraq.
You know how I said I have older balls?
Yeah.
They always seek an older Bush.
So that's the time and place. There are 84 total books in the Bailey School Kids.
Wow. I mean, I
which
knew
is
that,
impressive.
but I'll just say wow.
Which is impressive that this is our 100th episode.
Yeah.
Well, we've done this first book at least 30 times.
Yeah,
Oh,
so there's always a different take. We've also gone chapter by chapter.
Yeah. We did the grittier reboot. Let's see. So 84 books from 1990. Even though they were released in 1991, they were re-released in 2000, written by Marcia Jones and Debbie Daddy. Debbie Daddy.
I like Debbie Daddy.
Debbie Daddy.
And the cover artist is John Stephen Gurney.
Wow. John Stamos did all these covers?
He really did.
That's wild.
How rude. Cut it out.
Ah.
And who would have thought that he had time to do it? He spent so much time with the Beach Boys and being a guitar man.
That's right. Yeah. Dating that salad woman, Rebecca Romaine.
Wow, that joke makes me want to kale myself. So this book really brought me back to being in school.
Me too. It really brought back memories of desks and pink soap and trauma.
Did I had a shitty teacher that wasn't a vampire. She was my Spanish teacher, and I only later in life looked back on it, and she used to call me like idiot and stupid the entire
Jesus.
class.
What?
But she only called me that in Spanish, and I only found out later. But like, even though that's rude, I feel like the victor because I would have been offended if she was a better teacher. Because like, if you're insulting me in the language that I'm supposed to learn from you, and I never figured it out, then like, you're a bad teacher and you suck.
That's true.
Yeah.
Take that, Senora Bronstein.
I hope she's
real
dead
good
now.
Spanish name.
Bronstein sounds, yeah, it's maybe Brazilian.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Recollections on useful...
Shitty teachers?
Yeah. I had shitty teachers, but none that I barely
Shitty teacher,
remember.
but...
I had shitty teacher butt. End of sentence. Ed?
I went to Catholic school growing up, and I had a multitude of shitty teachers. In particular, I can remember Mrs. Oakes, who was my 8th grade teacher, and she was just the worst fucking person. Like, every now and then you come across a teacher who you can tell they got into the business not to educate children, but to, like, wield power over people like a dictator. And that was Mrs. Oakes. I remember one time, I was always, like, a messy kid, and I couldn't find, like, a homework assignment, and I had it in this folder that I had that I kept just, like, a ton of papers in. And she...
What was on the folder?
Oh, the folder, what was on it? Let's see, 8th grade? Oh, that would have been Green Lantern.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was a very cool 8th grader. But I couldn't find this, like, homework assignment, so she makes me come up to the front of the room, and she stands there and starts taking all the paper out of the folder and throwing it on the floor, just, like, grabbing it and throwing it, and made me pick it all up as she's throwing it.
Jesus.
In front of the whole class, yeah.
That was isn't that how Elephant the Elephant, that game, was invented?
It was like Elephant, except, you know, like, I have to talk to a therapist about it sometimes.
Yeah.
So Mr. Bucket.
Mr. Bucket, put your balls in my mouth, Mr. Bucket. It'll spit them right out. I remember Mr. Bucket and his balls.
And I think it's funny that this story, it's supposed to be about, like, a bad teacher, but it's really just about shitty kids.
Yeah. Yeah, Mrs. Jeepers doesn't really do anything bad. In fact, she kind of, like, brings some much-needed order to this classroom.
Yeah, this is a classroom full of deviants who want to make everyone's life miserable, the teachers' lives miserable. On page 15, they say, we need to decide how we're going to treat the new teacher. I was really thrown by that. I was like, they're in 3rd grade. We need to decide if you're going to make this woman's life hell. It's crazy.
Yeah, they have this very, like, Bart Simpson-esque attitude of, like, punish people who try and educate you.
Yeah.
But unlike Bart Simpson, they're not clever or witty or...
No.
You know, they're just, like, deviant monsters.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to ruin this woman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they ruined the first teacher, Mrs. Dee. She was apparently thrown off the deep end, or she went off the deep end when her drawer was filled with shaving cream.
So I had a history teacher in high school, Mr. Watson. One day, Mr. Watson comes into class, and somebody had put a cup of shit on his desk.
What?
What?
Like literal shit. Somebody shit in, like, a red Solo cup and puts it on Mr. Watson's desk.
Wait, what grade is this?
This is high school.
Okay.
So
I don't know why we're all, like, reasonable.
But Mr. Watson comes in, sits down at his desk, looks at the cup, picks it up, looks inside, sees that it's shit, throws the cup in the trash, and begins teaching class.
That's a power move.
That-
Oh my
I know.
God.
Is
And
a great way to
Mrs.
handle it.
Dee has a goddamn emotional breakdown because somebody put shaving cream in her desk.
Yes.
Like, that woman was clearly not meant to be a teacher. She just can't hack it.
No, and yet
No.
she's illustrated as like an older woman who's been teaching for years.
That's true. It could have just been that like these kids were the ones to finally break her. Like they were that shaving cream was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, because she moved to, it says, a small town in the farthest corner of Alaska because of this.
Yeah.
She becomes an Inuit.
Yes.
Also,
So-
Eddie is a fucking terror.
Yeah.
Eddie, I imagine Eddie to grow up to be that guy in the beginning of Silence of the Lambs who like says he cuts his wrists but just jerks off and throws it.
I assume so this is in 91. They're in third grade, so that means that they're about like 9 years old. I really think in about 8 years, when it's 1999, Eddie is dropped out of school. He's working at a gas station that all the high school kids come to because they know that he's not going to card them when they buy cigarettes, and got really into nu metal. Like he definitely has like a Limp Bizkit tattoo, and like talks to people about like how Kid Rock is like the best musician.
Yeah. Well, at least that tattoo's going to age well.
Oh, absolutely.
He's like an early juggalo.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
These are his pre-Juggalo days.
But yeah, so Miss Dee Dee is their teacher who they just emotionally destroy.
They abuse her until she leaves.
And they pull like old man pranks. These are third graders and they fill her drawer with shaving cream?
Right. Yeah.
Like, what like does Rodney Dangerfield come out? They're like, ha cha cha.
Looks like you're going to get a close shave. Hey.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. So they get her to quit, and as we said, they want this new teacher to really, really get it.
Yeah. The rest of the first chapter after that is just like inside jokes between them. And like we're privy to it for some reason.
Yeah, like they talk about how they think, well, like, wouldn't it be crazy if we get Mrs. Viola Swamp as a teacher?
Yeah.
And she's like a character from another book.
Right.
And that's not really like broached again. And it's not like if they're like, you know, what if we got Hannibal Lecter as a teacher? That would make sense
Right.
because everybody knows who Hannibal Lecter is. Nobody knows Viola Swamp. Not that I'm nitpicking this series, which I have nothing but good things to say about.
No. We just want it to be as good as possible, and or just, you know, constructive criticism.
Oh, of course. And then
That's
there.
like us right now being like, huh, you know, the character Melody, she reminds me of Jessica. And then they're like,
That's hilarious.
anyway.
And like the world has to like look in on that and be like, who are what?
Yeah.
We have no frame of reference for any of this.
But then we explain it and we say like, Jessica's somebody we know.
Yeah.
And that's all we
That's
say.
all the explanation you get.
Yeah.
They're also concerned that they might get a male wrestler as a teacher.
Right.
And that struck me because they kept saying specifically male wrestler.
Yes.
And I guess they're worried that the wrestler is going to come in and like beat them up. And, you know, maybe that's what they need. Maybe if like Goldberg came in and just started like, you know, spearing children, like they would all turn out to be not little shits.
Well, much later in the 90s, there was that commercial of, like, the little kid who opens his door and Goldberg comes and just starts, like, throwing him through, like, the mantle and, like, through all the chairs and everything at his house. Do you remember that commercial?
No.
No,
I have a
don't.
gif of it on my phone of this little kid lifted in the air by Goldberg, and he's literally going down the mantle over the fireplace, knocking over all the candles and picture
Oh my
frames
god, I
with
do
the kid's
remember
head.
this. I do.
That's awesome.
Shit, yeah. God, the
were like-
90s were such a magical time
What an honor that
It's
would
true.
be.
where
But
wrestlers
also-
could beat up children on TV with no repercussions.
I also thought maybe male wrestler, not like as in the sex of the wrestler, but who they wrestle. Because what if it'd be like, ooh, I'm going to get a female wrestler, and then like Andy Kaufman is their teacher. But yeah, male wrestler was a weird thing to
It
say,
was
and I'm
very
like, well,
specific.
and they
Yeah.
stick with it all the time. Like it's
Yeah.
a thing people say.
And they were real concerned about this shit. Like, maybe that happened in their school already. Like, a teacher retired, and then, like, Sting showed up and
And
was
hit
like,
everyone with
teach
a
his
bat.
class. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all concerned because this man who saw The Crow and it changed his life when he was 40 is now teaching. their class.
Yeah, they're like, well, second grade, I mean, they keep getting concussions, but they have a unlimited supply of Slim Jims, so it kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah, it's you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
You got to take the slim with the gym.
That's what they say.
And they get the exact opposite because they get a beautiful woman with a brooch and green eyes who, realistically, I would never make as a creator wrestler.
Oh, absolutely.
So-
I actually have. I wrote it down when she, Miss Jeepers, comes in. She's described as kind of short, and her hair was pulled back in a purple beret. She wore a starch white blouse with a tight collar. At the collar was a green brooch the size of a chicken egg. It seemed to flow when she moved. Her skirt was black and hung to the top of her black lace pointy-heeled boots. So, right off the bat, this woman comes in, and she has an accent, because we have to remember that at this point, it's 1991, the Cold War is over, and America is willing to accept funny-sounding foreigners into their hearts and in their schools to educate their kids. So they're expecting a wrestler.
Thank you very much. More Andy Kaufman for you guys. We're expecting a wrestler.
And they get this beautiful redhead woman. And I just, my mental image of her is Julianne Moore, the actress, who was very important to me during puberty.
Didn't she come over and like taught you about like erections and like how to handle your emotions and stuff? Like she was like your health
absolutely
teacher.
did. She taught me all these things in this comic that I wrote and drew myself. But they come in, and as a third grader, there is nothing more terrifying than a beautiful woman who happens to be your teacher, because you don't understand quite why you have these feelings, but she also has power over you.
Yeah.
Because she's an authority figure. She's your teacher. So these kids are flipping the fuck out.
Especially Eddie. Do we think Eddie is acting out because he's in love with her?
I think so. I think Eddie has a thing for Miss Jeepers, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I think Eddie has a thing for Melody too.
Yeah, he's a horny boy.
He
Later,
is.
I want to say I think I understand Eddie's character a little bit more in the second to last chapter. We'll get to that.
It's a nice tease. We'll put a pin in it.
Yeah.
I want to
Have
say,
a nice tease.
ooh,
It's a nice looking lady.
on page 8, Ed, what you just read, under that, it says, while the class stared at her, Mrs. Jeepers looked around the room. A couple of kids were chewing gum, and almost everybody slouched in their chairs. The next sentence is, a fat boy picked his nose, and a girl in the back combed her long blonde hair. What's going on with the body shaming in this book?
Absolutely, that is just cruel. That child is in third grade. It's, nobody warned him about carbs. Just like, god damn.
This was pre-Atkins, even.
Yeah, have some fucking compassion for this kid.
Jesus, yeah. I mean, again, we love Debbie Daddy.
Oh, of course.
Marcia
Nothing but good things
Nothing
to say
but-
about
yeah.
Mrs. Daddy.
Yeah.
And the other one who wrote it, whose name I'll never forget.
Marcia Jones.
Marcia Thornton Jones.
Look, I wish Debbie
Billy Bob's
Daddy was
wife.
my daddy. But at the same time, she's really casting aspersions at kids who struggle with weight.
Right, exactly. The kid's going to grow up with a fucking complex because this author is calling him fat.
Appalling.
Yeah.
Also, he's not real, so that probably causes him some anguish too.
This kid's he's like a four Lunchables by day kind of guy, 8 Hostess by night.
Diabetes is going to hit that kid like a truck.
But again, it's early 90s. Back then, health food was like a sandwich.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, bread was still healthy.
It was like,
You could eat Skittles because they were fruit flavored. It's like, here's your fruit for the day, kids.
yeah.
Yeah, this is when Trix was shaped like fruits and not just little balls.
Yeah. Oh, what a time to be alive.
So the first thing Mrs. Jeepers does is say, hey, I'm glad to be your teacher. There are some rules I expect you to follow. And she writes them on the board. And the rules are, number 1, act nicely to teachers and fellow students.
Legit.
Number 2, talk at appropriate times.
Seems fair.
Yeah.
Number 3, walk. That's it.
And that's it.
Is that,
That's it?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. The third one's confusing. I think
It is.
it seems unfinished. We're to take that as walk, don't run.
I think she was just a really big fan of Pantera and wanted all the kids to know what her favorite Pantera song was.
Okay, I follow that. I like that.
I mean, that's my headcanon
Yeah.
for this. I'm just joshing you guys. I don't think she listened to Pantera.
Maybe it's an acronym for something.
We all love koalas.
Women are loving kilts.
Well, a leopard, kids.
Excellent. So
these three rules are very, very reasonable.
Yeah.
And, like, if that's all you have to do, just be nice to teachers and students. Talk when it's appropriate. Don't talk, just, like, talk at the appropriate times. And walk.
Right.
Don't run. Like, those are not hard rules to follow. And our boy Eddie is having none of this shit. And he specifically brings up the fact that she doesn't make rules that specifically say he can't cause bodily harm to other students.
To be fair, I was going to say, like, he could just shoot out farts from that third grade ass all day during class, and technically falls within the rules.
It is not breaking a rule. It's not even close to breaking a rule.
The rules are reasonable, but few.
Indeed. But Eddie says, what if we don't follow those rules? What'll happen then? And Mrs. Jeepers says, I hope you never have to find out.
So a threat on the first day, that's her version of beating up the first guy you see in
It's
prison.
pretty good. This was also right before we get the first clue about her vampiric status. Because she says she's from Romania. And Eddie is apparently a fucking Romanian expert because he says Jeepers doesn't sound like a Romanian name to me.
Yeah, and she says that her real name is too hard to pronounce. Like,
Right.
she's a fucking elder god. And, like, unknowable, and we'll just drive them to madness if we know her true name and see her true form.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like trying to read it like it's like Jaap School. It's like, well, that shortens to Jeepers.
So she says, she also mentions Transylvania here. She says, I grew up on my family's estate at the foot of the Transylvanian Alps. And then she was forced to leave.
That's the fucked up thing, that they're forced to leave.
Yeah. Definitely
Like it's
by,
war-torn.
yeah, they were displaced.
You know, I'd like to say it was, like, villagers with pitchforks, but, like, more likely it was probably, like, communists.
Yeah.
Probably. It was just like, you know, it's like I had a friend from Yugoslavia in like middle school and high school, and it's crazy that like in that time of knowing him and like he'd go back to see his family, that like the country he was from and his family was in like had changed names multiple times. Like it wasn't Yugoslavia anymore. At one point he was like, oh no, I'm gonna go to Serbia. And I'm like, isn't it crazy that you're going to visit your family in the same place and it's a whole new, like, everything?
Right.
That's like, fuck it, it's not New Jersey anymore. We're in Wacky Town. And they'd be like, shit, I need a Wacky Town license plate or everyone's gonna
driver's
far
license.
behind. Yeah.
So the kids are reacting to the news of Mrs. Jeepers. They're like, how are we going to treat her? Which is insane. And it says that Eddie says, no mean teacher would think about using rules like that. She didn't mention one thing about pushing, hitting, or spitting. So Ed, just like you said, he takes her to task on that. And
He's really psyched to be, like, a freaking monster to his fellow classmates.
yeah, spitting is interesting.
Yeah.
I still think spitting is the worst thing you can do to somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, it's so awful.
Like, if you slap somebody in the face, they're like, that's so disrespectful. If you spit at somebody, like, you should go to jail and hell.
Yeah.
You should go to jail and hell.
Yeah.
Do they have jail in hell?
That's one way to find out.
All right. Suicide Pact, yay!
Let's all kill ourselves while spitting at each other.
Pencils down, boys. Bye. So, whatever. They're being little shits. And then they talk about Mrs. Jeepers moving into the Clancy estate in town, which is supposedly a very haunted house. Not only that, but they see... they're walking by the Clancy estate later, and they see the movers bring a long wooden box into the basement of Mrs. Jeepers' house.
And she also invites them in immediately.
Yes, very strange.
It's like-
Not okay.
Come in and see my shitty house.
Yeah. And it's very funny the way she like sneaks up behind them when they're looking at her house, and she says, "Good afternoon, children. I see you have noticed my new home."
Listen, she is just a poor woman who is escaping the fall of the Soviet Union, and she comes to America to make a fresh start for herself, and is just being kind to these kids who clearly are not getting the supervision and discipline at home that they need, and they're just being so mean to her.
And
They are. Eddie insults her house. He says, "You might
Yeah.
want to clean up in here."
and I mean,
It's
the
like,
thing
fuck
too
you,
is-
Eddie. What's your house? Eddie like probably lives in like a trailer park, and like his dad got laid off from the plant, and now just like sits in his underwear and drinks Miller Lights at like 3 in the afternoon.
But Eddie lives in a refrigerator box. He lives in like when you take like a cooler and you make like a little cat house for homeless cats, and you put a blanket in it so they stay warm. That's where Eddie curls up every night, and he licks himself.
Well, we know he licks himself. That's canon.
Yeah.
in later books, but
So he's in no place to cast
all I'm saying
aspersions.
is that this is a house that she bought, and it's as is. There's broken windows, and it's like dusty and terrible. And we're like, well, she's living in there because she's a monster. No, she's living in there because she's on a teacher's salary. She's an immigrant whose husband died.
Yeah, that's right. She's a widow.
Yeah, and they don't make her life easy, because after they go back to school and they talk about like, oh, she lives in the Clancy house and she's probably a Dracula. Then Eddie starts doing shit with his mouth, like making goldfish noises.
Again, the
Yeah.
fuck is a goldfish noise?
It's like the puckering, like in the picture, he's like puckering his lips and like smacking them, like he wants to like lick himself again.
Eddie
There's so
reminds
many-
me of this kid I went to school with named Ross Wolf.
Calling you
He
out.
was, yeah, well, I don't think Ross Wolf is going to listen to our Bailey School Kid podcast.
Well, let's hope
unfortunately.
everybody go on Facebook and look up Ross Wolf.
But Ross Wolf was such a douchebag and like this just like dirty stoner kid, and I always thought he was going to end up like in jail or something. And like a year ago, out of curiosity, I just looked him up on Facebook, and it turns out that he is now the leader of the Young Republicans in Philadelphia.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess he kind of turned his life around. But when I was reading this book, Eddie made me think of Ross Wolf.
Yeah.
Like, either this kid's going to, like, wind up in jail, or he's going to lead some young Republicans.
Right, he's gonna like insult some indigenous people or something and like talk about it on the
Yeah.
news.
Right, he's going to get really into conservatism just because, like, it lets him say awful things about minorities.
Right.
He's
Empowered.
gonna be like one of those senators that just like fucks and kills prostitutes.
Yeah.
And has so much money that he walks up to the cops, hands them like a stack of bills, and says, "Clean up my mess,"
Yeah.
and then walks away.
And there are no consequences.
Either that, or it's gonna be the dead body that all the kids walk down the train tracks to see.
Just kids poking Eddie's dead face with a stick.
Until it pops.
Yeah. Urban legend: beware of Shitty Eddie.
If you hear goldfish noises, you know his ghost is near.
Yeah, making goldfish noises like a male wrestler.
So Eddie does all this shit. He like holds his history book in the air, or his math book high in the air, then lets it go, and he slams it on the ground basically. Everybody jumps except for Mrs. Jeepers, and she says that is quite enough, which is one of her catchphrases in this book.
Something that I noticed about Mrs. Jeepers is that she doesn't really get upset or show a lot of emotion.
No.
And I think that's because, as a Dracula, she's immortal. She's been through this shit before. These kids are not going to break her. Like,
No.
she's had to deal with, like, you know, angry villagers and probably vampire hunters and other Draculas, maybe a werewolf.
Well, at the foot of the Transylvanian Alps, if she's anywhere near the Dracul family and Vlad, he lined up just like telephone poles of stakes around that entire mountain to protect his area, and it was just other soldiers like Ottomans with fucking the pole up their butthole out their mouth. And he did like, I think it was like 6,000 people or something.
Yeah, it's what the Transylvanians lacked in manpower to fight off like the invaders from Asia. They made up for in sheer brutality. And another thing is that Vlad Tepes would set up like a table on the battlefield and just eat his lunch, and he would have bread, and he would dip his bread in like a bowl of blood from like the freshly killed soldiers.
Like, you know when they're putting up a new cell tower and everyone's like, oh, and then you're like, you know, you see the PSEG or whatever people like get everything together. Imagine if that's every day, but it's a screaming living man getting the tower put up his butthole and out his mouth. So shaving cream, not a big deal.
Yeah, she'll
Yeah,
be okay.
she can handle it. And the next chapter, perhaps my favorite chapter title, Hip Wiggles. So Eddie's not making an impact, and he really wants to, so he like sharpens his pencil and wiggles his hips around. It's so stupid.
She is shrugging off like his A game, so he's got to improvise. Like he is like, this is like a Hail Mary pass for him. He's like, I got to do something to make this woman notice me, because I am just a burning ball of hormones, and my pee-pee's hard in the morning, and I don't know why. So he's got some real issues he's trying to figure out, and that's why he shakes his hips.
Well,
Yeah.
I think his refrigerator box, somebody thought it was like the recycling and threw a bunch of books and maybe like an old biography on Elvis. And he was just like, this guy just ruined America by just shaking his hips. And this was like his end-all ultimate A-game like offense. And he went in and he started shaking his hips. And what do you know? It worked. Because he
And
got
also-
her eyes to flash.
Also, like Elvis, at one point in his life, Eddie will shoot a television set.
Also die on the toilet.
Yeah.
But yeah, her eyes flash, and this is when everybody just makes that jump to like, oh yeah, this lady's crazy. This lady
Right.
has magic powers, because we all saw her eyes flash.
Yeah, they thought something was up with her from the beginning, but the initial thought they had was that she was a jewel thief.
Oh
Which
yeah,
is just
Yeah.
a strange place for them to go to.
Yeah.
especially that they barely knew her.
Yeah.
They're like, she's probably a male wrestler who is a criminal.
So chapter 6 is when things come to a head, and Eddie's friends, like Melody and Eliza, and the whole gang, Howie, ask Eddie to break into Mrs. Jeepers' house and see what's in the box that they were bringing into her basement, because they think he's a chicken, because like he didn't do a good enough job like swinging his balls around like a lasso in the classroom.
He couldn't do that thing where he can make that slapping noise.
He was just sharpening pencils like a fucking dolt. So they want him to step his game up. So Melody and Eddie make a pact, and they say, Melody says, I can do anything you can. We'll go tonight, she said. Then she turned and walked away.
This is going to be great practice for Eddie for when he eventually starts breaking into people's houses to steal from their medicine cabinets.
Yeah, this is probably part of America that struggles with opioid addiction, which is not a joke. But
not.
Eddie is definitely
It's
dealing.
Yeah, but here's a joke about it. Yeah, the only huffing that he was probably doing was from her underwear drawer. He is a dirty, dirty, rowdy
He's a
boy.
dirty boy. He's horny for vampires.
And I hate him. I hate him.
I think it's safe to say we all hate Eddie,
Yeah.
because he represents the worst in all of us. This book is very deep. God damn you, Mrs. Daddy, you beautiful, beautiful genius.
Tapping into the human spirit with these books. That's why we do this.
Yeah.
It's like,
every
what is it
single
like to
week.
be a person? Yeah. And this
Yeah.
is art in its highest form.
That's why we're bringing you Bailey School Dropouts 3 times a week, every week.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, they
Well,
go,
now, do you guys want to go to our sponsors?
oh, should we make a little cash?
Yeah.
We got to keep the lights on in the Bailey School, so let's do it.
No free bread for the Bailey School kids.
That's right.
Hey, how do you guys make your websites? Squarespace is an easy way to get your ideas out there. And right now, if you write Eddie's Lame Sack, you can get 20% off on a new domain.
Wow, I've been using GoDaddy and Geocities this whole time. You're telling me I could use Squarespace and put in Eddie's balls and get $20 off? Or whatever you said?
Just like what happens when you put Eddie's junk into something, they'll give you $20, which is his career after he drops out of 3rd grade.
Wow, this is amazing. I also want to point out that this really relates to our book because on page 35, Melody says, Eddie says, well, I had to wait for my dad to sack out.
Yes, he does. That's all I wanted to talk about. This is the best page in the fucking book. And then after that, it says, Melody patted a big bulge in her coat pocket. It's right here. Let's go.
Oh my
There are
God.
some real sexual undercurrents to this book.
Yes, there is.
At the by the way, this page ends with Eddie saying he took a deep breath and said, "Ready when you are."
And then,
Vampires don't wear polka dots. A frank discussion of the sexual awakening of 3rd graders.
yeah. And then they do a deep dive right into that box.
They
But it's
sure
locked
do.
from the inside.
That's right. So, yeah, they can't get in there. Also, I want to point out that the language these kids use sometimes is insane. Eddie says, this is a quote, "Do you want to open it or shall I?" Totally natural.
Eddie getting all fancy and shit.
Yeah.
Shall I open this box for you, milady?
Well, he is like a Romanian history expert, so I should expect
Yeah.
nothing less.
Well, is he also the guy that says that their new teacher is probably a, quote, old-fashioned softie?
Oh, yeah. Right, was that him that said
Is-
that?
Is Eddie just like a 40-year-old man pretending to be a kid to get free school lunches?
To get bread and dip it in blood?
He's just horny for milk that comes in a tiny box.
He is. And for boxes that won't open. We've all been there.
So they go there and they hear a noise, which it's confusing because they say they hear a noise. Did it come from the box? It must have, but it didn't.
Yeah.
And then the next day at school, they're like, listen, it was crazy. The box made a noise. Like, come on, guys. Come on, Daddy. Tell me. Tell me, Daddy Thornton.
You
Tell
gotta-
me.
You gotta paint a better picture there for us. Like, that's fine. Maybe the box is just filled with vibrators. just like a coffin-sized box filled with like 100 vibrators.
And they're just all going
Because-
off.
Yeah, I mean, it happens sometimes. We've all been there.
I mean, her husband, which we know from the prequel to this book, was just, I mean, such a good lover and tender, caring, and jackhammer of a man. So now that he's dead, sometimes the only way to fill that Transylvanian Dracula husband is with a giant coffin filled with shaken dick toys.
Yeah, man. I mean, whatever keeps your head out of the oven, you know?
But eventually, though, Eddie does get it open, and he takes one of the dildos out and replaces it with a steak, which I thought was clever.
Yeah, he's throwing the gauntlet down. He's like, fuck you, you horny vampire woman.
Yeah.
It's a steak with 2 cloves of garlic at the bottom.
That's right.
But the suction cup is still there. It's fine.
I don't mean a piece of wood either. I mean like a uncooked steak. I didn't know if that was
Oh.
clear.
Well, no, so
Eddie,
that way...
Eddie can't afford steak. He lives in a cardboard box.
I mean, it was a skirt steak.
And it was also a possum that he had trapped.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't cow meat.
That's true. It doesn't have to be cow to be a steak.
Yeah.
That's what I've been told.
So, they... In the chilling silence, they heard a thump. What was that? Melody jumped and grabbed hold of Eddie's dick. Shh! I don't know. But whatever it was, I didn't like it. Where'd it come from? Melody asked. So they run away, and then, at the height of the show, you heard a dramatic reading of them looking at the spooky house. They say bats showed up for no reason, which is fine. And they see glowing green eyes. and she comes out in her PJs like a ghost, wearing her brooch. Which, is that really how you spell brooch? I've never had to write it because I'm an adult male, and I don't often write letters to grandmas about things to buy.
Doesn't come up a lot in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I think the only time you write brooch nowadays is if you either work at a thrift store or you work on people's wills.
Right. Or you're like a 19th century ghost.
Yeah. I am none of those.
There are also bats, I want to say, in this illustration that we have, hovering over Mrs. Jeepers' house. And because Eddie, it's suggested that Eddie sees bats, but we don't know if that's his little dumb kid imagination or if they're actually there.
Yeah. And Eddie is dumb, so.
He's very dumb.
Oh, fantastic.
Unreliable narrator.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Romania, he knows all there is to know. But when he wants to, like, feed himself, he can't.
He probably saw a single bird and was just like, oh, it's a bat!
Anything that flies, he thinks is a bat.
Yep. Whether it's, a bird, the Reader's Digest that his father hurls at him when he says, I never wanted you.
Right.
That's unfair. That's unfair. There's no Reader Digest in his home. It's a TV guide.
Yeah.
It's like the TV guide. Well, it's 1991, so it's like about a Friends episode or some shit.
If Eddie survives until 2016, he's going to be really happy to make America great again.
Oh, yeah,
he'll be on the front lines.
Yeah, I'm sorry to politicalize this podcast about vampires.
Look, when you know, you know, and we know that Eddie is a MAGA fucking asshole, ball swinging, cowboy, stake planting. Let's just keep going with these adjectives. What do you guys got?
So the only thing that I would like of an Eddie, like Where Are They Now? I would read a whole series about Eddie trying real hard to be a UFC fighter, but like always losing. Like The Wrestler, where they're like, if you get punched in the head one more time, you will die. And he's just like, well, how am I going to live my dream? And it's like, he's going to the match and he knows he's going to die, but then he like goes and finds Mrs. Jeepers and like she punches him in the head and he dies. And then she goes to jail, but she turns into a bat because she was really a vampire the whole time.
This is the alternate ending for this book.
Yeah.
That's what she was going to go with originally, Mrs. Daddy.
And that's why we'll call that one Flowers Don't End Up on Eddie's Grave. There's still plot, but I don't even give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of fast forward this.
Blast through it like Eddie through a Sears catalog of underwear.
One thing I did want to bring up is that the next day at school, after breaking and entering into this poor immigrant's house, like she says something about like how a prowler broke into her house last night.
Yeah.
But she says it like really matter-of-factly, like it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, she also threatened them by saying, and I'm sure it won't happen again.
Yeah.
Right, like she knows.
Yeah. This poor immigrant, like I bet Shepard Fairey probably put her on a poster by now. But so they do that, and then so she knows because they're fucking dumb kids. There was like a little thing they left behind. They never locked the door or like had it open, so nothing came of that. Who fucking cares? And then Eddie he tries to one up the shittiness for the rest of the book. Just one time after the next, because then they're gonna play a math game, and for the first time the kids are excited to learn because they're gonna play a math game.
Yeah.
These kids suck.
And Eddie decides to just go fucking haywire and like dumps his desk out and like lays on the ground and is like slapping things and flipping chairs, and then she hypnotizes him by rubbing her brooch.
Yeah, that's right. And he doesn't participate for the rest of the time. He's just sort of staring at it.
Like stuck on the ground.
At this point, Eddie basically becomes like her Renfield from Dracula. Like, she's under his thrall.
Yeah. Yeah, they're hinting at like powers that she has, because also she like Eddie blows a bubble before that and she flicks her finger from across the room and like telekinetically pops it or something.
Very Matilda.
Yes.
And yeah, so then at the end of class, they go up to him and they're like, "Hey, what was that?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. She didn't even talk to me. Like, everything's fine."
Yeah. It's like, dude, you were under a spell. You took off your pants and you swung around those big balls again and started sharpening your dick in the pencil sharpener. He's like, what?
That would explain a lot, but and then so at that point he's like, "Fuck this bitch. Tomorrow I'm gonna get her. I'm going full tilt on all of my bullying."
Her magic hypnotic powers are not enough to stop his inner douchebag. Like, it's just like spewing out of him like blood from a wound.
Yeah.
This kid is just such a piece of shit that hypnosis barely works on him.
He is the human embodiment of a barbed wire tattoo, and he is ready to go.
About a year after this book takes place, Eddie has his first Monster Energy drink, and it changes his life.
So the friends at this point, they're like, "You know what? We're in 3rd grade. We're too young to experience the loss of a peer, so let's try to keep him alive." And this is probably one of the only details of the book I really liked. Where the kids, they get like, one kid's wearing a cross. He gets like a big cross, and they're like, "Yeah, we need to get garlic, but the only thing I have in my house is garlic salt."
Yeah, and that's Howie. And I will say this. These kids are a bunch of douchebags, but Howie is fucking getting shit done. He's like, this monster, this creature of the night has come into my territory and is trying to harm my peers. Fuck that. I am getting the garlic salt, and I am going to fuck her up.
And it's crazy. It's sad that he became the least liked Backstreet Boy, but it's good to know that he came from like a real place of action.
Yeah.
He did his research because he has that book, right? Vampires and Witches, The True Story. So there's like an illustration here where he's holding the book in one hand and the garlic salt in another and explaining to Melody how they're going to go after Mrs. Jeepers.
I was waiting for the explanation of him being like, "So you see, Vlad Dracul was a family man of the dragon. He would stick a post up their butthole and out their mouth and eat their stuff. It turns out, like, as long as she doesn't stick a yardstick up our buttholes, we should be fine." And the kids are just like mouths open, making goldfish noises. I don't know.
Wiggling their hips.
Yeah, just like, "I'm too young for this." But
Howie, all of the awful stuff that happens to Eddie as he gets older, Howie just like gets really into like paranormal research, and like nobody fucking likes him and takes him seriously. And he starts wearing a trench coat because he thinks it makes him look like Constantine, but he's just an asshole.
yeah.
I don't think anything good happens to any of these kids.
No, none of them have good, bright futures.
Melody gets drafted and killed in Vietnam.
Vietnam 2, which was in 1993. And the thing too, these characters, other than Eddie, there's really no depth to them whatsoever. The class is this amorphous blob that every now and then they just like pull out a face just so they can say something, and they just shove them back in.
Did either of you guys ever read The Virgin Suicides?
No. I know that was a big thing, though.
Kids.
Yeah, it's a really great book, and it's narrated from the point of view of a non-specific boy that went to high school with these girls, and it's almost as if that it's the collective group speaking as the narrator. And there was points early on in Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots where I kind of thought they were going for the same thing, but then I realized it was just shitty writing.
Yeah. No offense, Daddy and Thornton Jones, but it's not good.
Mrs. Daddy and M.T. Jones.
So this is the point where we get to see that our boy Eddie's got some chops. He is a prank wizard. So they get there early and they spread the salt all over the place, the garlic salt.
Yeah.
And then Jeepers comes in and she is allergic to garlic and starts sneezing. And she's sneezing so dang hard that she can't even tell that our boy Eddie throws 20 goddamn paper airplanes in the sky at the same time. I don't even have 10 in each hand. This boy's a wizard.
Yeah. Her eyes are like scabbing over and she can't really see what he's doing. So he's trying to do all this stuff and it's frustrating because he's not getting the attention he wants.
She's shitting her pants because she's sneezing so hard. She's lost all control of all the fluids coming from her body. It's nuts. Snot's coming out of her eyes. She's having her period out of her ears. Everything's fucked. And Eddie is upset because his like virgin flight from west of classroom to east of classroom is not noticed by his teacher.
That's right.
So he decides to get fucking crazy. So he's making fart noises. He's open. This is the point where he lifts his desk and just starts throwing the books across the room. He's walking up and down the aisles, just pulling pigtails and ears, and just like he sharpens all of his pencils and crayons down to nubs.
Yeah.
He is just snapped.
Yeah.
This is like, kids are watching this, they're like, oh man, Eddie's lost it.
Yeah.
We're not going to see Eddie for a while, I don't think, after this. He's gonna be sent away.
He stands on his desk, pulls his pants down, spins, and just keeps yelling the N-word over and over and over again. And then they're like, Eddie, you're not in trouble, but I want you to meet this doctor. So she can't notice because she's so fucked by this garlic. And then Lisa, who, fuck her, Lee's favorite, I mean, she's second most evil to Eddie, we'll discuss, but she's like, sometimes I have allergies, and my mom says it's goddamn cat fur dust, so if you get in here and you can come down through, sweep up, and you even feel real better. So, way to be on the Dracula side.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. So, and then we get the most anticlimactic ending
Oh my god. Yeah.
where she realizes that Eddie is just going off on racist tangents and it poops one tiny nugget onto his seat, and she's like, that's it, meet me in the hallway. And what happens in the hallway, boys?
She straight up drinks his blood.
She insanguinates him, right? Is that the word?
Yes. She's just like, I have had it. I am thousands of years old, but this redheaded asshole from Middle America has broken me. And she murders him.
I think, so in reality, in this book, they say nothing. Eddie's like, I will
Yeah.
never speak of this day. And they say, even at the end of the year, for the rest of his very short life, he does not. Maybe on his deathbed, he may have spoke it, but, I mean, he was just ODing alone, so nobody knows.
Yeah, he just hints at what happened. He says, I'll only say this, you guys were right. Mrs. Jeepers is no ordinary teacher.
Yeah.
You think she was just so, like, she just, like, made out with him? And then sent him back into class just to fuck with his head?
She just grabbed his hand
I mean-
and put it on her boob. And then walked away saying nothing.
Well, actually, it's funny because I sent an email out to Daddy and Thornton Jones, and she said the real ending was it was actually two kids in a trench coat.
That's Mrs. Jeepers?
And they just winked. Yeah, Miss Jeepers didn't give any... That's why she never gave homework. It was
My
just two
God.
kids in a trench coat.
Yeah, she's not what you think. It's two kids in a trench coat.
And the brooch was the air hole. So that she would always make sure the air hole was open. And the reason her eyes flash is because the one kid on top...
Frankly,
became
I think the
Cyclops.
reveal was a bit obvious from the beginning that Miss Jeepers was just two kids on each other's shoulders in a trench coat. But hey, that's just me. I'm really smart.
All right, so that's the end. She just takes him into the hall and says, like, I'll call your parents. And
Yeah.
then he's just like, oh, shit, no. But what I teased at the beginning is the biggest part at the end of this book is that Eddie, the way to defeat him is that she just didn't give him any attention. And you realize this boy's not getting any attention at home. And that's why he acts out in class. And it's
no, and that's
very
also the
sad.
way you deal with this shit is kids just want attention. So if it's good attention, great. But if it's negative attention, they still want it. So they'll do all kinds of shit for it. And she's not having it. She knows how to teach. She knows how to treat behavioral issues. So she's like, fuck you, Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie sucks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the point where we try to find some good writing that we liked and then bad writing. I feel like we went through most of it.
Yeah, I said all my good already, so I won't refer to my
There's
staggeringly long
Some of the
list
good things I
of
would
good
say
things.
are things that maybe I inferred. The ending is very, very bleak. And I don't know if it was intentional, but the way I read it was these kids have accepted that their teacher is a vampire and there's literally nothing they can do about it. And they might die because of it. That's really scary and horrifying. But I also think that maybe Mrs. Daddy and M.T. Jones just, kind of half-assed it.
Yeah, I would like the idea to make it a little bit more Lovecraftian, to the point where there is things that he cannot unknow now. It's like the universe has been opened for Eddie far beyond his psyche can handle.
He's seen
and
too much.
Cracked. Yeah,
He hears voices now.
he has seen the monolith.
Yeah.
But I actually like this description. I think this is the only real writing that you can kind of tip your hat to in the entire book. It's when they find the box. Melody felt around the edges to see if she could find the latch. Me neither. You don't suppose it's locked from the inside, do you? Don't be so stupid. How could it be locked from the inside? That wouldn't be any good unless someone was inside to unlock it, Melody finished for him. Melody looked at Eddie, and Eddie looked at Melody. Then they both looked at the box. Neither of them said a word. In the chilling silence, they heard a thump. What was that? Melody jumped and grabbed hold of Eddie's arm. Shh, I don't know, but whatever it is, I don't like it. Cool.
Yeah.
But better, not the best writing. This is the best writing. Page 65. As soon as Eddie arrived, trouble began. Phew! Somebody stinks, he yelled. Who had spaghetti for breakfast? What does that mean?
What's strange?
Garlic
What's strange
spaghetti.
is that I just realized that I didn't actually read Vampires Wear Polka Dots. I accidentally read Bonfire of the Vanities by Tom Wolfe. But I've totally been able to half-ass my way through this conversation. So,
Really impressive.
you can't argue with results.
You figured it out.
Yeah.
So do we wanna go to our grand finale? The way we end every single one of these 100 podcasts?
Before we do that, time willing, I do have another teacher-related story.
Oh, please.
Okay, so
I'd love to hear it.
Mrs. Dee was driven to leave by these kids because they were terrible. When I was in high school, my senior year, there was just a cavalcade of math teachers because they kept leaving for different reasons. The first was a woman who didn't even make it through a full day. She made it to about noon, and the kids were so awful to her, she left, crying. Now, my high school was actually a fairly nice high school, but the math program was a joke. If you were in first track math, you had a decent teacher. Second track and third track was just a zoo. Because they didn't have decent teachers, nobody gave a shit, nobody was learning anything. And I was in third track math because I'm pretty sure that when I was a baby, my parents dropped me on my head and I landed on the spot of my brain that controls math because I don't understand it. So this one woman is gone. She's replaced by Mr. Ajay Codier. And Mr. Ajay Codier was a very nice man. He was also right off the boat from Ghana, and nobody could understand a single word he said. So we're trying to learn math from him, and it's not really going great solely because there's a language barrier. Mr. Ajay Codier is there for about a week. Then one day, the vice principal, Mr. Hoban, comes in, and he says, okay, everybody, Mr. Ajay Codier is not going to be teaching the class anymore. He's no longer at the school. And we're like, what happened? He's like, I don't want to get into it. Somebody in the back of the class just shouts, he got deported! Mr. Hoban starts giggling. And he's like, I'm not saying anything. And we're like, oh shit, he got deported. And then after that we get 2 more teachers for various reasons. Flash forward to 2012. I'm hanging out with my buddy Joe, and he says to me, hey, do you remember Mr. Ajay Codier? I'm like, oh yeah, he got deported. He's like, yeah, he died. I'm like, oh shit. So it turns out what happened was Mr. Ajay Codier did go back to Ghana for a short time. Then he came back to America, and he lived in Joppa County, Maryland. And I lived in Maryland for a while last year, and I can tell you Joppa County is not really a nice area. So what happened was he was staying with this host family, and the family had a 21-year-old son. Do you guys remember a couple years ago where there was that craze of people like doing bath salts and going nuts and like eating people?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what happened was this guy, while on bath salts, kills Mr. Ajay Codier and eats his heart and part of his brain.
What the
Holy
fuck?
shit!
Yeah. This,
What was the kid's named Eddie?
yes. His name was Eddie. He was on bath salts, and he was driven crazy by the knowledge that his teacher was a vampire.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
And this is real life.
This is 100% true. I am not making up a bit of this. Like I said, his name was Mr. Cujo Ajay Codier. You can look it up. It happened. And that's the worst thing that ever happened to one of my teachers.
Jesus.
Just getting that out, I realized that was actually really depressing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I brought everybody down with my story about a teacher being eaten.
you can find the photo if you just search Maryland Heart Eaten. It's the first thing that comes
Oh,
up.
a picture of of Codier?
No. I'm guessing it's the very angry looking man. Yeah, Ajay Cody. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, that's very easy to find. So now, let's do our number one spook and scare, our best dressed, and our alternate title.
Who wants
Which
to
we
go
do in
first?
all of our Bailey School Dropout episodes.
I would say my spook and scare is page 39 to 40 when they go into Mrs. Jeepers' house. And we've talked about this already, but when they find the coffin, quote unquote coffin, is locked from the inside. Dave, pretty much the part that you read. And, they heard a chilling thump, et cetera, et cetera. I think that was as close as we got to a scary moment in this book.
My spook and scare is when Miss Jeepers hypnotizes Eddie, because that is the first instance of something actually paranormal happening. I have a theory that this whole thing is caused because Miss Dee Dee was so traumatized that her anguish broke reality and she cursed Bailey School. Because there's 84 more books where they get visited by trolls and more vampires and mummies and Frankenstein.
And Santa.
To be fair,
Santa.
one of those is a joke book.
I'm just saying, all of these horrible creatures are coming to this school for revenge for this poor woman who had shaving cream in her desk.
That's true. I like that. But mine is on page 30 when Liza waves her hand in the air and says, "What about homework, Mrs. Jeepers? Don't you want to assign anything?"
Terrifying.
You fucking know that kid? I hated that kid.
Kid was such a dick.
One of my best friend's older sisters was that person in one of the classes, and I'll never forgive her for it ever.
Ugh, it's terrible.
Fuck that. Used to do that every day. Or even worse, she was the person that says, "Hey, do you want to collect the homework that Dave didn't do at the end of class while we were leaving?"
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Anyway, best dressed.
Oh, best dress, hands down, goes to Mrs. Jeepers. Miss Jeepers. She was fine.
And I believe you texted us and said that she made you turgid. Is that correct?
I did say that she made me turgid. She gave me a erection.
I think Matt and I are gonna have the same.
Oh, yeah? Page
Page
6?
six?
Yeah. We're on the same wavelength. It's Mr. Davis.
Oh, yeah, the principal.
And it's really because of this line.
Oh, God, I know exactly what you're going to say now.
Mr. Davis looked something like an egg with two legs. He wore dark-rimmed glasses and was completely bald. That's it. That's the whole...
Also, he looks just like Walter Skinner from the X-Files.
Yes, in the picture.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Yes.
We'll post it on our Instagram. He looks just like Skinner. So yeah, that was mine. And now, alternate title.
The Bailey School kids and the awkward conversations with Dad about erections.
Okay.
Dave?
Mine is roughdraft.doc. This book sucks. It is unfinished.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that you write and gets lost in your documents file forever. Sorry, Daddy.
Sorry, Daddy. That's what I'm going to call it. Sorry, Daddy. Or it came from the box, which is an actual line in this book.
Wait, I want to change mine to Eddie Origins.
Love it. All good shit.
All right.
Well, boys.
Well, thanks to not the special guest who's on this podcast forever.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd say
Edward
thank you
Stan.
for having me, but like it would just be silly because I'm always on this podcast. 84 episodes, Bailey School Kids. 84 more coming your way every week.
Yeah.
Bailey School Kids, now and forever.
We're just saying
Eddie, up your ass.
we appreciate your presence on the pod, Ed, as always.
Oh, thank you.
Always.
I appreciate you two for letting me be a part of this.
Now, I know
Again and again, every week.
you're always on the pod, but is there anything you'd like to plug at this time?
There is another podcast that I am involved in that is much inferior to this one because it does not involve the Bailey School Kids in any way.
Fair.
It's called The Age of Enfrightenment, where we take a scientific look at the paranormal, strange history, and things that are generally frightening and strange. And you can look us up on the iTunes, and we have a website, aoepod.com. And if you just wanted to send me money, that'd be cool too. Like, it won't go to the podcast in any way, but like, it'd be great if you just want to give me money.
Yeah.
And we'll post that. You guys don't have an Instagram, though, right?
We don't.
You have Twitter, though.
We do have a Twitter.
Yeah, so
AOE
we'll
Pod.
post that on. Well, of course we'll post it because it's all of our cool Instagram for this podcast.
Yeah. Oh,
that
sure,
we
yeah,
have.
absolutely.
We'll post it on our Bailey School Instagram.
Of course, and as you know, thank you guys. This will be posting on April 1st, the 1st of April.
Yeah.
Nothing significant about that day.
No, it's just a new month, new start.
Yeah, man.
Thanks.
April
thanks for
showers bring
everybody.
May flowers.
Everybody who showed up to our live show, just 2 days prior to
That's
this
right.
episode's release.
Yep.
And if you didn't show up, fuck you.
Yeah, you piece of shit.
But also,
Call.
thanks for listening.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
for
Keep listening, you ass.
Again, if you want to get killed on this podcast, go to iTunes, write a review. It's not enough that you click the stars. You need to say some words so we know who you is and how we can make you the dead one.
That's right. We got to get a sense of you so we can murder you.
Yeah. It's like, it's never random. It's like, I gotta follow you in my car for a while before I can tear your skin off.
And eat your heart.
And with that, we'll say
Pencils down, dudes.
pencils down.
Pencils down, dudes.
Pencils down, dudes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.